I want to bring in Professor Andrew Latham, distinguished scholar of international security, strategic studies and political economy, who joins us on this special broadcast. Professor Latham, welcome. Ambassador Prabhu Dayal, welcome. Dr. Surya Kamal Datta, welcome. Professor Latham, your appreciation of the meeting. You agree with John Bolton. President Putin won, though President Trump did not lose. Key takeaway according to you, sir?
Well, I think that's an apt way of characterizing it. Putin certainly won in the sense that he got literally and metaphorically the red carpet treatment. He's back at the center of the international community, in his own mind at least, and he certainly was treated that way. There was a lot of bonhomie between the two, and compliments were exchanged, and he looked like a world leader, not the isolated warmonger that he has been made out to be in certain quarters around the world. So in that sense, Putin definitely won. He also won in that he played defense very well. He didn't give anything up. He kept talking about the root causes of the war in Ukraine, and no ceasefire was possible until these were addressed. These are long-standing red lines for Putin, and he didn't back off them one little bit. He seems physically incapable of smiling, but again, metaphorically, he was smiling throughout this thing. He was on his best behavior. He looked like a statesman. He looked like the leader of a great power. That's a win for him. Trump, on the other hand, looked like what he is, which is a deal maker. He, again, emanated this very positive, gave off this very positive vibe. But when you listen to them carefully, they said almost nothing. Generalities and vague aspirations, nice words, but no details. And then Trump dropped the big bomb at the end, near the end, when he said, well, of course, there was one big issue that we couldn't agree on. Well, gee, I wonder what that big issue was. Yep. It's clearly Ukraine and the war in Ukraine. A while back, I would have said that Donald Trump would have rolled over because he's not very interested in Ukraine. He's not very invested, again, literally or metaphorically, in Ukraine. And I don't think he cares very much. But he's under a great deal of pressure from American partners and allies. Prime Minister Starmer in the UK and Chancellor Merz in Germany and President Macron in France and others. And they are insisting that Zelensky has a seat at the table before any deal get done. And so Donald Trump, as is his wont, changed his mind and changed his approach.
Okay.
Bottom line, for this particular 3-hour-long summit, everybody looks like a winner, except for the Ukrainians.
That's the big point. Everyone looks like a winner except Ukraine and Europe. Ambassador Prabhu Dayal, you've served there extensively. Europe was very apprehensive that President Trump may concede, may force Ukraine to cede territory, even though indications were that territory swap or conceding territory would not be a part of the conversation on day one. But your takeaway from the 3-hour-long summit, sir?
Well, my takeaway is on a slightly different note.
Okay.
You know, President Trump's desire to bring the Russia-Ukraine war to an end is linked to his desire to win the Nobel Peace Prize. The Washington Post had commented last month that the road to President Donald Trump's highly coveted Nobel Peace Prize might ultimately run through Ukraine. Now, if you recall, in his inaugural address on January 20 this year, President Trump had said that his proudest legacy will be that of a peacemaker and a unifier.
Yes.
He has repeatedly said that this is the reputation he wanted recorded in these 3 books. And it's no secret that he covets the Nobel Peace Prize. Let me recall also that last month, the White House press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, had told reporters that it's well past time that President Trump was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. Now, of course, the Russia-Ukraine war's complexity and the deeply entrenched positions of both sides, combined with the potential for shifts in the global political landscape, make ending the conflict a formidable challenge. So, what is Europe's take on this? Europe certainly doesn't want a settlement forced by the United States, and which is entirely against the interests of Ukraine and, in fact, of the whole of Europe. And it's not going to be able to, for President Trump to force a solution. And this is perhaps what has happened. nothing major, I think, has been achieved.
Okay.
Though, of course, the White House had already tempered the
Expectations down.
expectations. They had said it's a sounding out summit. But more than that, I don't think we can expect much from
So,
what happened.
Dr. Surva Kamal Datta, would European capitals heave a sigh of relief, or would they be disappointed with several commentators saying President Putin has walked away victorious? He hasn't conceded an inch. There is no ceasefire. The war continues, and he's got the red carpet.
Well, I would say Europe would be doubly cautious now after yesterday's and last night's meeting of President Trump and Vladimir Putin. I understand also that the biggest loser in this first round is actually Ukraine. Ukraine actually did not get what it was expecting. It was expecting an immediate ceasefire. President Trump was so shrill and loud before the meeting, saying that if there is no immediate ceasefire, he will just walk out of the meeting. And after the meeting, he sounded so hollow. So, and that is what the character of President Trump is all about. He keeps on fluctuating, he keeps on deviating from whatever he says. But the biggest winner out here, in my understanding, is like hats off to Russian diplomacy, as well as to President Vladimir Putin. He has personally won the first round. He has re-established himself, re-legitimized himself and his
Okay.
presence as a global leader, and especially with the Western Bloc. And what better than United States of America? Second is like in terms of the tariff also, I think President Trump has to give a lot of answers to the global world now after the explicits given by President Putin that, there has been a 20% increase in bilateral trade between United States of America as well as Russia after the new regime came over. So President Trump has to give a lot of answers to China as well as to India and other countries on whom he has imposed sanctions because of bilateral trade with
Well,
Russia.
he's threatened 25% additional sanctions on India, chickened out of imposing additional sanctions on China for the next 90 days. But as you very rightly point out, that if there is a bilateral trade, and as President Putin mentioned, 20% it's reached,